Not that I was expecting a parade or anything, but why is everyone so eager for me to go?
Stefan just wanted to pay a simple visit, but who would have thought that his original friend Klaus would run into trouble, dragging Elijah down with him, both of them getting outsmarted by an ex-girlfriend. Right now, Klaus and Elijah are lying helplessly in a pool, ready to be slaughtered. Whether the spell to break the link between the originals and their bloodline works or not, Klaus is doomed to die, and there's a good chance he'll take all the vampires he sired down with him. Stefan has no choice but to join the battle to defend the originals. In the conscious world, Aurora wildly provoked Klaus, even going so far as to ask if Camille was still as adorable now that she had become a vampire. The next, she mocks him by saying, "Didn't you always see yourself as a knight in shining armor? Maybe this chess piece is your symbol." Then she questions, "Are you worried no one will come to save you? Because no one truly cares about you. Aurora is pushing every single one of Klaus's buttons, but Klaus's worries are unnecessary, as his friends have already crafted a battle plan. Freya will tap into Lucien's energy to enter the mental space and help her brothers break the illusion. Hayley, Marcel, and Stefan are responsible for the frontline rescue mission to retrieve the originals' bodies. Marcel quips, "So, the plan is for us 3 kids to take on a bunch of vampires who've been alive for nearly 1,000 years? Stefan replies that he's got a powerful ace up his sleeve. The rescue mission quickly moves into action. Hayley and Stefan were lying in the trunk in an awkward state. To break the awkwardness, Hayley pulls out her phone, and the image of hope on the screen catches Stefan's attention. Stefan asks, "Is this why you're risking your life to save him?" Hayley says she doesn't want her daughter to lose her father, and that the brotherly bond between Klaus and Elijah moved her. Hayley then asks Stefan what his lock screen is. Stefan takes out his phone and shows it to Hayley, saying his girlfriend Caroline and brother Damon are his motivation to fight as well. They both have people they want to protect and are willing to sacrifice their lives for them. The car arrives at its destination, and the gatekeeper vampire lets Marcel through without suspicion. Klaus and Elijah are listening to Tristan play the violin. After all, it's understandable that someone who's been stuck here for so long would be a bit overexcited to have guests. As soon as Aurora starts talking, you can't help but want to strangle her. Elijah is not shy about sneering back that Klaus is glad he dumped you. In the real world, the witches are ready to begin the unlinking spell. Marcel tries to persuade Davina to abandon the ritual, but Davina, with Cole on her mind, refuses his plea. Stefan no longer hesitates. He silently picks away at the ointment covering the scars and invokes his own outside help. Raina the vampire hunter. Davina tosses Jackson's heart into the water. Freya begins chanting her spell. Lucien lets out a cry of pain. Freya enters the consciousness realm and urges her brothers to quickly find their totems, but suddenly a wound appears on Klaus's throat. In the real world, a witch has slashed Klaus's throat, and he collapses helplessly to the ground. Elijah's throat bears the same wound. The witches need their blood to fill the entire pool. The unlinking spell has begun, and the brothers lie in the water, covered in blood. But Raina, whose mission is to kill every vampire, is already on the battlefield. She effortlessly takes down the gate guards. Upon hearing this, Aya has no choice but to step out and check the situation. Freya presses Klaus and Elijah about their totems. The brothers choose the pieces symbolizing the king and the knight. The vampires Aya sent are quickly slain by Raina. Raina, drenched in blood, appears before Aya. Taking advantage of this distraction, Hayley sneaks into the ritual site and, without a word, kills the vampire in front of her. Marcel also steps in to help. He tells Hayley they must pull Klaus and Elijah out of the water, but Marcel's betrayal enrages Davina. The witches strike together, blasting Marcel and Hayley to the ground. Freya hesitates, holding the 2 chess pieces. Aurora's smugness makes Klaus change his mind. Without a word, Freya switches the pieces and begins chanting a new spell. Elijah is the first to feel the discomfort. He awakens from the consciousness realm, and in his fury, he grabs the chanting witch in front of him and unhesitatingly bites through her throat. Davina hasn't given up on chanting the spell. Elijah swiftly takes out another witch. Freya grabs a chess piece and continues her incantation. Davina pours all her power into Klaus. Klaus successfully wakes up. He leaps toward Davina, but with a burst of strength, she throws him back into the water. She completes the spell all by herself. Lucien's hands begin to burn, and as the spell progresses, Klaus starts to feel discomfort. Marcel and Stefan experience the same symptoms. The spell has succeeded. Exhausted, Davina passes out. Klaus, drained of all color, collapses into the pool, and Elijah jumps in, cradling his brother in his arms.
My skyline is broken.
Aya finally defeats Raina, but all her efforts have been in vain. Her link to Elijah remains unbroken, rendering her unable to strike against him. Elijah couldn't forgive Aya for what she'd done, but he couldn't seem to pull the trigger, his eyes red with the guilt of abandoning Aya in the past. Without hesitation, Hayley drives a stake through Aya's heart, finally avenging Jackson. As Aya dies, the small world she created for Tristan begins to crumble, leaving the siblings with no time to say goodbye. The familiar sensation of drowning returns to Tristan and he once again receives his punishment. Aurora awakens in agony from the consciousness realm, only to find herself trapped inside a wall. Klaus is casually plastering the wall, having thoughtfully placed a boundary spell to ensure Aurora has no chance of escape.
I wouldn't grant you the mercy, so while the fish eat him, the worms eat you. Just know.
With his mission complete, Stefan is about to leave New Orleans. Stefan promises Klaus that he will take good care of Caroline and advises Klaus to be kinder to Hayley, noting that she genuinely cares about him. Klaus was a little surprised by this and the two shook hands and said goodbye. Stefan turns to leave, but Klaus feels a sudden discomfort and is almost unsteady on his feet. Freya explains that Klaus has lost a significant amount of energy and needs a good night's rest. Davina rushes back to the attic, secretly pouring a bottle of the Originals brother's blood into Cole's ashes, then begins chanting once more. The swirling magic lifts Davina's hair as a naked Cole returns from the dead, looking in disbelief at his beloved.
I never doubted you for a second, Davina Claire.
In a stretch limousine, several beautiful young women lie dead in gruesome fashion. The driver in the front seat wears a look of grim determination as he pulls out a lighter. A towering blaze engulfs everything. This is yet another fresh challenge facing the Originals family, but this time, their enemies are more ruthless and reckless than ever before. With his bloodline link severed, Klaus is becoming paranoid, suspecting that his enemies are converging on New Orleans from all directions. He's going to have to pay for his years of reckless indulgence. Elijah and Freya both think Klaus is overreacting. As the three siblings argue, Klaus suddenly senses movement at the door. Davina enters the mansion, and without a word, Klaus grabs her by the shoulders, only to be thrown aside by another man. It's Cole, freshly returned from the dead. The brothers meet again, and Klaus is utterly shocked. Freya steps in, finally realizing that Davina had siphoned Klaus's energy to successfully resurrect Cole. The brothers embrace each other tightly, long-lost family reunited at last. Cole, however, is dismayed to discover that his brothers have made more enemies over the years than he can count. Rebecca is nowhere to be found, and there's deep hatred between his brothers and his girlfriend. Klaus offers Cole a glass of fresh blood, but Cole declines, saying he'd rather drink from a blood bag, as he promised Davina he'd never go back to being the bloodthirsty and cruel person he once was. Cole decides to teach Freya a few tracking spells to help Klaus locate his enemies. Marcel has finally become the de facto leader of the vampire community, but on his very first day in charge, he runs into trouble. 3 of his most trusted vampires have gone missing. Something strange is also happening to Vincent. A stranger hands him a note inviting him to meet at a bar, then swiftly pulls out a knife and stabs himself in the throat. Vincent rushes to the bar, only to find the usually lively place eerily quiet. A mysterious vampire is dining there and arrogantly declares that he doesn't like noise while he's eating. Vincent doesn't hold back against this man who practically has provocation written all over his face, but Gasper has already compelled the humans in the bar if Vincent makes a move, the people inside will turn on each other, turning the place into a bloodbath. Vincent has no choice but to comply with Gasper's demands, but Gasper's request shocks Vincent. He wants to find the remaining white oak stake. The string of missing vampires is giving Marcel a massive headache, so he asks Josh to find Davina and have her cast a locator spell for the missing vampires. Josh quickly finds Davina, who's idly waiting in the attic for Cole to return home. She's a bit worried that Cole might be influenced by his brothers and turn into a murderous monster, but Josh insists that's not important right now. Davina does as she's told and sets up the spell. She soon finds all the missing vampires, but the witchcraft shows that they're all dead. The bodies of several thousand-year-old vampires are piled in a dumpster, covered in werewolf bite marks, and in the entire French Quarter, there's only one person capable of organizing werewolves to systematically hunt vampires: Hayley, who's determined to avenge Jackson. Marcel has no choice but to inform Elijah. This is when Elijah realizes that Hayley and her pack have been plotting something. He instructs Marcel to burn all the bodies, then turns and leaves alone. Elijah soon finds Hayley in a dark room, but she ignores his pleas and axes down the female vampire in front of her. Hayley hands Elijah a blood-soaked list, The list contains the names of those who once kidnapped her and Jackson. She says this is the last thing she can do for Jackson, and no one will stop her. The blood travels slowly across the map as Freya completes a complex locator spell under Cole's guidance. The blood quickly settles on a few distant locations. Klaus breathes a sigh of relief. His most feared enemies are scattered far and wide. Only one has made it to New Orleans so far, the ruthless Gasper. At this moment, Gasper is forcing Vincent to commune with the witch ancestors in an attempt to locate the last remaining white oak stake. Camille arrives at the bar with the blood-stained note, but as a newly turned vampire, she's no match for Gasper. She discreetly sends a text to Klaus. Gasper soon notices Camille's actions and knocks her out cold. Vincent receives a revelation from the witch ancestors. The white oak stake wasn't entirely destroyed. Aurora still holds the last bullet, but the ancestors refuse to reveal its location. Gasper demands Vincent to ask again, but the witch ancestors refuse to bow to evil. Vincent's eyes begin to bleed. His face contorts in pain, and he soon collapses to the ground unconscious.
Welcome to New Orleans.
Klaus walks into the bar, clutching a wooden stake. Gasper continues to threaten him with the lives of innocent humans, but Klaus has never been one to yield to such tactics. Without hesitation, Klaus grabs the stake and pins Gasper to the wall, then swiftly kills a few knife-wielding humans. Camille rushes forward. She tries to use her own blood to save innocent humans, but Klaus reminds her that it's too late. Camille could only leave in anger. Gasper struggles and pulls the stake from his body. Klaus walks over to Gasper and grabs him by the collar and throws him to the floor once again. Without a second thought, he breaks the chair and nails Gasper to the floor. Then Klaus commands all the compelled humans to leave the bar. Klaus pulls the stake out of Gasper and demands to know where he learned that a white oak stake still exists. Gasper's words shock Klaus to the core. Klaus's enemies have already formed an anti-Klaus alliance, and Gasper was merely the advance scout. He has already informed all his allies that the white oak stake is still in Chicken Wing City. Soon, Klaus's enemies will swarm in from all corners of the world. Just as Gasper said, Freya and Cole watch in horror as the blood, once scattered across the world, begins to converge on New Orleans. Klaus, unable to tolerate it any longer, decapitates Gasper with a single blow. Although Klaus had swiftly decapitated Gasper, his enemies had already caught wind of the situation and were converging on New Orleans. The Originals siblings finally realized the gravity of the situation. Elijah had an army to protect him, but the only people who wanted to protect Klaus were all standing in this house. Klaus decided to leave New Orleans with his family under the cover of night. He pulled out a blood-stained bag, inside which was Gasper's severed head. Marcel's first task was to inform his subordinates, claiming that this man was responsible for all the vampire disappearances. Elijah took care of the remaining vampires on Hayley's list and burned all the bodies. He pinned everything on Gasper, successfully clearing Hayley of any suspicion. Elijah returned the blood-stained list to Hayley, then silently sat beside her. Hayley, moved by his actions, admitted that she had always loved Elijah, but Jackson's memory would forever stand between them. She had to end things with Elijah, otherwise, she couldn't face her husband's spirit in her dreams. Elijah accepted this decision with a calm expression.
I tried that myself. Didn't work.
Holding back his sadness, Elijah turned and left. Klaus also attempted to say goodbye to Camille, assuring her that he wouldn't love her any less just because she had become a vampire. But Camille told him that Aurora had changed her inside, and that her love for Klaus had died with the human part of her. Without saying goodbye, Klaus turns away, holding back his grief. This night was destined to be a sorrowful one for the Originals brothers. Under the cover of darkness, Klaus kissed his sister's cheek and bid farewell to Elijah. The siblings watched their brother leave with heavy hearts. To ensure his daughter's safety, Klaus drove away with Hayley and their daughter, leaving behind the city that haunted his dreams. But the friends and family left behind in New Orleans remained under the threat of unseen dangers. Camille confided in Vincent, admitting that she still loved Klaus, but she couldn't understand why he refused to kill Aurora. She feared that the next time Aurora tried to hurt her, Klaus would hesitate between his two lovers. Vincent suddenly received a revelation from the ancestors. In the dead of night, he made his way to a dark, secluded cabin and, with trembling hands, retrieved the last bullet made from a white oak stake from a hidden compartment under the floor. Cole has a perfect night with the love of his life, but when he wakes up in the middle of the night, he's drunk all the blood bags and still can't control his thirst for blood. He was forced to go out into the streets, slaughtering innocent people without restraint. But then, a young man called out Cole's name. He is none other than Finn, the older brother of the Mickelson family.